Hello everyone, welcome to Advanced Planning and Control Week 5. This week we will focus on project methodologies. All project management experts agree that when a methodology properly defined and followed for project management, this will provide the company a solid foundation to accomplish the work on time, in budget, and according to specifications. And also, they agree that a project management methodology is a must-have. Why? To reduce risks, to focus on critical success factors, and build skills in the project management teams. The project management methodology will guide the team throughout the design and execution phases. It will give them the processes and tasks they need throughout the life cycle of the project. In project management, we have different methodologies, we have different approaches. Some approaches are traditional, some are modern, some are formal, and some are informal. Examples of different project management methodologies are Agile, Waterfall, Prince 2, PMBOK or the Bimbook, Scrum, Lean, Kanban. The project management methodology term is not new. Actually, it was first defined in the 60s. At that time, several organizations started to think of effective ways to manage different projects. Of course, the communication, cooperation, collaboration were key criteria to establish working relationships, to establish relationships between teams and departments, different teams and different departments. We can think of the project management methodology as a skeleton framework that allow the team to describe each task or each step in depth. So the project manager will know what to do in order to provide and implement different activities and different tasks according to the schedule, within the budget, and in compliance to the specifications and quality standards. The methodology is a control mechanism because it allows the project manager to control the whole process of managing the project. It gives the project manager tools to effectively make decisions and solve problems. For any methodology to be successful, it has to be scientifically proven. It has to be systematic and disciplined. This way, we can implement it to manage different projects. When we select and adapt a specific project management methodology, and this methodology is effective and suitable to the nature of the projects that we manage, we will be able to define the needs of different stakeholders, create a common language to understand each other, to facilitate communications between different teams. Also provide accurate and reliable estimates for cost and time. We will be able to apply the same methodological approach to different tasks. And in case we have conflicts, we will be able to spot the conflicts and address these conflicts earlier and even before it happens. We will have a way to communicate a common goal and expected results, and we will be able to produce and deliver these results. And also, we will have a way to systematically analyze lessons learned and create solutions based on these lessons and implement these solutions for future projects. Do we create a methodology or choose a methodology? Whatever we decide, there are certain rules to create or to choose a methodology. Methodologies are created around the project management maturity level of the company. This will differ between company to another. A mature company with a culture that fosters cooperation, collaboration, it has tools to create effective communication, foster teamwork and trust. This company can create a methodology. And this methodology will be highly focused, flexible. It has guidelines, forms, checklists, and established templates. On the other hand, for other less mature companies without the culture that we described, less flexible methodologies with somehow rigid policies and procedures could be implemented. What is a project management methodology? The project management methodology is essentially a set of guiding principles and processes for managing a project. The way we choose a methodology will define how we will work, how we will communicate. So selecting the right methodology depends on the team, the projects that we deal with, the project scope that might differ from a project to another. Also, the level of project management maturity that this company experiences. And each project management methodology has its pros and cons. What fits a specific project type will not fit a different type. As I said, there are different types of project management methodologies, and there are different well-established methodologies out there in the market. Theoretically, these project methodologies can be applied on different types of projects. However, some methodologies are specialized and tailored for specific fields. So when we are selecting a pre-made methodology or a well-established methodology from the market or from the tools available to project managers, we need to think of the advantages and disadvantages of each methodology and the suitability of this methodology to the type of projects that we manage and the well-established culture that we have in the company. To decide if this is a good methodology or not, we need to think of the methodology in terms of templates to facilitate creating documents and documenting different processes. The guidance that methodology provide that's suitable to the level of detail necessary for the project. Does it have standard techniques for planning, scheduling, and cost control? Does it have standard reporting formats for internal and external stakeholders? Is the methodology flexible enough to be applied to all projects within the company or within the department? Some methodologies will be very stable. Some other methodologies will be more flexible. Some methodologies will be very structured. Some other methodologies will be very dynamic. For example, waterfall methodology is known to be very stable and very structured. The PMBOK methodology is known to be stable but dynamic. Lean and Kanban are known to be structured and speedy. Agile and Scrum are known to be dynamic and speedy. There are few questions that we can ask to decide the right methodology for the type of projects that we manage. Are the projects complex or we deal with straightforward projects? Is the culture of the company flexible and dynamic? Are we willing to take risks? Are we willing to change or evolve the workflow? What type of clients we are dealing with? These questions will enable us to assess, do we need a very structured and formal approach, or we need much more flexible and informal approach? As I said, the type of project affects the type of methodology that we choose, and also the work culture or the company culture plays a significant role in choosing the right methodology. Senior management must maintain a corporate culture that supports excellence in project management. The culture must also demonstrate trust and faith in the project management methodology that we will choose. When we align the culture to the methodology that we choose to manage projects, we will have lower project risks, better decision-making process, better control over project scope. Managing the project will be completed faster and within budget, less time spent on internal politics and conflicts. Project management doesn't happen in isolation of the company culture. In fact, project management happens within the context of the strategic intent of the company. So when we understand the broader context of the project management within the company, we can align our approach to the objectives and the strategic intent of the organization. We can align the project management methodology with the practices that's already established in the company. Because in many cases, the corporate culture affects the success or failure of the projects. And nowadays, when we have evolving culture, because we are introducing remote work or telework, we need to align the project management methodology with the bigger context of the corporate culture. Also, the organizational structure and the organizational culture influence the way we manage our project, the way we execute the project. And also the level of maturity of project management within the organization also affects the way we manage our projects. Usually, the project involves many parties. We call them stakeholders, partners, subcontractors, clients, different departments. And all these stakeholders contribute to the success of the project. So the methodology that we will choose will create the sort of participation and communication that we need based on the organizational culture, our structure, the maturity level of project management, and also other influences. The organizational culture is also based on the shared values between different departments, between different teams. The way these values are defined by the top management. Also the level of professionalism of different teams. And the culture of any organization is created by the experiences of the members. And the majority of organizations have developed their own unique cultures throughout the years of practicing and common usage and common language. And there are elements that affects the influence of the organizational culture on the project management methodology. Vision, mission, values, common expectations, the policies that we implement, the methods and procedures and processes that we use, the reward systems that we establish. Also the risk tolerance. Are we able to accept high risks or low risks? Also the role of leadership, hierarchy, structure, and the relationship between different teams and authority, ethics, general work environment. These are all elements ingrained in the corporate culture that will affect the methodology that we choose, and also the success of the implementation of the methodology that we will choose. A very important point when choosing the right project methodology is dealing with internal politics and conflicts. As project managers, we need to deal with different teams, different stakeholders, sometimes contradicting goals, different cultures between different stakeholders. We might have a specific corporate culture, and our client, they have a totally different corporate culture. So all of these elements create some friction, some internal politics, and might lead to conflicts. Also, communication plays a very significant role in conflicts. Sometimes conflicts arise because we have different communication approach or we have misunderstandings. So the right project management methodology will enable us to choose the right communication tools, to create the right communication plan to manage the project. So let's focus more on understanding the differences between the two major approaches to project management, formal and informal. In some business literature, they might refer to these as traditional versus adaptable, or traditional versus modern. They might also refer to it to structured versus flexible. So these are different terms to identify the same concept. Because companies mature differently in project management, formal methodologies might be applicable in certain contexts, where informal project management methodologies will be applicable in other contexts. The waterfall methodology is known as a formal methodology or a traditional methodology. And sometimes the company recognize that their needs go beyond these formal approaches, and they move from formal to informal because the rigid processes become guidelines. The templates and the checklists will be used in a certain flexible way that can be applicable in different contexts. So the formal approach or the traditional approach includes sequential steps and create a process that takes place step by step. And we start by designing, then developing, then delivering the product or the service. And we move through these steps in succession, and we build the benefit on milestones, building teams, structuring the steps. Waterfall is an example of the traditional project management methodology because we go throughout the project in a linear sequence, from initiation to planning and design to implementation to control and integration to validation until we reach the closing phase. In informal approaches or modern approaches or adaptable approaches, we don't focus on this linear sequence, and we think of alternative approaches, and we focus on improving the processes. So instead of having these sequential processes, we have inventory of practices or tools that we use in iterative way to improve the results. And here we need to remember what we said about the project management maturity model. So the project management maturity model is a concept that allow us to assess the project management success. And it gives us 5 levels of maturity that we can assess the company against these levels. And it will help us to improve our processes and move from level to the next. The first level is the initial process. At this level, the organization operates a little bit randomly. The implementation of control tools and measures is relatively low, and it is very difficult to predict the success of any project. Then we move to the second level, where we have some structured process and some standards implemented. In this level, we implement basic project management practices, but only on individual project level. And usually we depend on key employees or key individuals. And those individuals, they create some structure that they follow or allow the teams to follow. Then we move to level 3, where we have organizational standards and institutionalized process. So in this level, we have well-defined procedures, and these well-defined procedures become standards in the company. The work is well organized, and we have a support system to all the functions needed. Most of our processes and procedures are documented, and we have tools to manage and control different projects. Then we move to level 4, managed process. In managed process, we have the right matrix that we can use to assess the different levels of productivity and results based on well-established procedures and standards. The last level, or the fifth level, is optimizing process. In this level, the highest level of the project management maturity model, we have the right procedures in place, and these procedures are available at an organizational level, meaning it's available to everyone and all teams. And the top management is interested in improving the performance on continual basis. And also we in the company, we are open to include more innovative techniques, to experiment with different ways or different tools, and this will give us a competitive edge. So having the right project methodology, project management methodology, will enable us to move up through these levels. We will be able to design procedures that will be available to employees and managers in different departments. And we will create some platforms to integrate different units, different departments using different tools. And this will help in creating a communication channel, a connection between different departments and improving the flow of information. Then we can move to the higher levels. So we will establish a solid, good foundation of organizational culture. And we will use different tools for business intelligence, for workflow, and these innovative tools will allow us to improve our processes, to introduce checkpoints, to add more innovative technology. For the purpose of this course, we will talk about waterfall as a traditional methodology or formal methodology, and we will talk about agile as informal methodology. For waterfall, this approach or this methodology emphasizes a linear progression from the start to finish, and usually it is relying on careful planning, detailed documentation, and consecutive execution. And in this methodology, we develop rigid project policies, and we don't allow flexibility as much. We use the requirements to develop the schedule and the budget. And this methodology is ideal for projects with similar requirements that are all well-defined scopes, and it doesn't require many scope changes. And also it deals with products or services that doesn't require significant customization. And this methodology works sequentially, beginning with a well-defined requirements and require large amount of documentation throughout the project, and usually it is costly to implement. Usually there are 5 stages of the waterfall methodology, starting with the requirement, to design, to implementation, to verification or testing, and then to deployment and maintenance. There are some disadvantages of this methodology, and also there are some advantages. The advantages are, in the early stages of requirements and design, we can catch design error and avoid these errors until we reach the implementation phase. We can estimate the total cost of the project accurately. We can establish the schedule baseline correctly, because in the first phases of requirements and design, we think thoroughly of the requirements so we can create accurate estimates. Also, the structured approach of the waterfall methodology is easier to follow, and it's also easier to measure progress according to clearly defined milestones. If we have teams or individuals that will join later in later stages, they can easily catch up because everything is documented and all the requirements are documented. It's also easier for the customers to follow up the progress of the project, and usually we will avoid unnecessary delays. On the other hand, the disadvantages are Projects can take long time to deliver because we have to follow the steps carefully, and there's huge amount of documentation. Also, one of the disadvantages is that this methodology doesn't allow customization, doesn't allow changes even when the changes are necessary. Also, not all stakeholders are involved in all stages, and we might experience some deadline creep. We will not experience the scope creep, but we will experience deadline creep when there are delays because other phases are delayed. Agile methodology is considered informal or modern or adaptable. According to the Agile Manifesto, individuals and interactions over the process and tools are informal. We focus on the solution, not on the comprehensive documentation. We also focus on the customer collaboration over contract negotiation. And also we focus on responding to change, not following a rigid plan. And some of the agile principles that make this methodology informal and adaptable is that they welcome changing the requirements, even in late development stages. Close daily interactions and cooperation between different teams. Face-to-face conversations is encouraged, and usually, according to the project management maturity model, companies or organizations evolve from process-based overbearing methodologies to traditional or formal methodologies to more informal and adaptable methodologies such as agile. And in adaptive cultures and complex projects and ever-changing markets, informal approaches might give us the flexibility that we need to address all these challenges. So we can say that we need a framework for project management. For many companies today, their methodology has evolved to a framework. And this framework is not extremely flexible or extremely rigid. It's in between, harnessing the benefits of both approaches. And the framework is a skeleton to support the structure for building the project deliverables. And it gives the project manager flexibility and freedom to meet the needs and execute the results. And we evolved from a methodology to a framework to be able to implement or use the process on projects of any kind, size, nature, or type. Framework project management focus on achieving the desired changes in accordance with a chosen methodological approach. And framework project management identifies and defines how to best manage change. And the methodology is used here as the way to systematically achieve changes in terms of time, cost, and quality. However, methodologies can fail. And they fail when we create the wrong methodology or when we choose the wrong methodology. They also can fail when we misuse the methodology. Also, methodologies can fail when we cannot use the same methodology across the company. That's why we will find companies use different methodologies. For example, they might use a more traditional formal methodology in construction, and in the same company, the IT department is using a more informal, adaptable approach. The construction department is using waterfall, and the IT department is using agile. So when there is a mismatch between the project methodology and the project environment, the methodology can fail. And also the level of the complexity of the project, when it reaches a high level, it might create chaos. Without implementing the right methodology, we will maintain the chaos. Some methodologies are process overload, and they have too many processes, and this might create more complications and elevate the risk level. Also, Methodologies might fail when we wrongly estimate the time for implementation, when executives don't understand the use of a methodology and think it's a quick fix to solve problems, when we choose a methodology not detailed enough to the level of complexity that we have in the project and it is too abstract to use, when it doesn't address all necessary functions, when it ignores the standards and best practices, when the methodology doesn't have the right performance metrics for control and monitoring, and also when it is too rigid and bureaucratic, which adds time to the project. Also, when it doesn't allow flexibility when we need flexibility, and it doesn't allow for value-added project scope changes, and when the methodology is too detailed to use and takes too long to document. So it is important to choose the right methodology to implement based on the level of project management maturity that we have in the organization, based on the corporate culture, and based on the type of the projects that we are managing.